Wow, stories.
Hey all, I don't normally browse this subreddit, but have been on Reddit for 14 years now, currently on my throwaway, and I'm not sure where else to turn to for this. I know that this sub has a lot of eyes on it, and I hope I can gain some insight from you folks, because I feel that I'm in an incredibly tough position right now. This is going to be a long one, so buckle in. I, 28-year-old male, proposed to my fiancé, 28-year-old female, last year in June, and our wedding is currently booked for October 5th of this year. The venue is already half paid for, $24,000 total, as well as our services like DJ, officiant, photographer, videographer, etc. Just tonight, through plenty of conversation spanning the last 2 months, it finally came out that my fiancé cheated on me a month and a half ago, with an old flame that randomly popped back up in her life. Let me rewind things for a moment. My fiancé and I met just a little over 3 years ago during Infection 19 through mutual friends. We had gone to high school together, but never spoke to each other then. And one night during a virtual games night, we connected and I felt a strong urge to make a move, despite everything being locked down during the pandemic. I asked her if she wanted to go for a walk through our local park, since everything was shut down. And she told me she'd love to. Next thing I know, we really hit it off big time, and she essentially moves in the next day. We both connected on so many levels. The immediate attraction and connection was obvious. And from there, we would only see our relationship blossom and grow without any end in sight. Like any relationship, we've hit some bumps in the road along our journey. But 3+ years later, I can say that we've always grown from these bumps, and everything always seems to only get better. These bumps being things like petty arguments, differences in opinion, that sort of thing. She's the only person who I've ever felt I can truly grow with, and always trust that things will be okay, especially since our communication is on a level that I've never known with anyone else. For all of these reasons, I've always felt that we're perfect for each other, and last year I proposed to her without a doubt in my mind. She said yes, and we were both over the moon. I should mention that she's incredibly close with her family, while I am not very close with mine. Since the beginning of our relationship, her family took me in and immediately made me feel like one of their own. I love her family almost as much as I love her, and I know they feel the same about me. After being engaged for almost a year, we're most of the way through wedding planning, and I thought that things were better than ever before. Until a few months ago, my fiancé brought up in late March that she was really nervous about the wedding. No biggie, I talked her through it like we always do, and she felt much better. She mentioned her worries were around entering the next chapter of life and saying goodbye to our early 20s and younger years. I assured her that this next chapter will be just as amazing, and she seemed to react well. A couple of days go by, and she's stressed out again, this time providing a few more details about feeling like we're entering the boring chapter. Again, no biggie, I talk her through this one, and she reacts well again. This goes on for about a couple more days, and I can tell she's getting cold feet a bit. We continue to talk about these things in open communication, and the conversation ends up directing towards some shortcomings in our relationship. For a few days, we work together to identify the root of these issues. She tells me she knows it's not my fault, but that she's feeling a lack of romance. We go over every minute detail, and while some things are valid, like each of us needing to make more of an effort, we identify that there's nothing else really missing, romance-wise. Eventually, after enough communication, she feels instantly better, and the worries go away. Cue the guilty era. My fiancé starts feeling better about everything, and keeps profusely apologizing for how she was acting, and how she's actually very excited to get married. Every time, I reassure her that it's fine. You got cold feet, that's perfectly normal, and I'm happy you're over it. But the apologizing continues for the better part of a month. At this point, I'm kind of feeling like something's up, so I provide a safe space to come clean and ask her what's really going on. She breaks down and explains that what she was feeling before about our relationship was very real. And a couple weeks into it, an old flame of hers reached out for the first time in over 3 years to see how things were going. She mentioned that the conversation was very appropriate, at first, until he started to come on to her, despite knowing she's now engaged. She told me, to her own guilt, this made her feel some excitement after having felt like that was something that was lacking in our own relationship. She then explains that she shut the conversation down immediately and that she's felt immense guilt ever since. I just appreciate her honesty. We talk through this like we do everything else and laugh about how it could have been so much worse. If only I knew. She mentioned to me a week later that she and her best friend have a Toronto day planned. We live outside of Toronto, and this is a very normal thing that they would do. I'm quite close with her best friend and thought nothing of it. She has her Toronto day with her friend and makes it back to me the next day. From here, things continue like normal. However, the guilty conscience never stops. My fiancé continues to profusely apologize about the time she was getting cold feet and talk to that guy. I keep reassuring her that it was okay and that we were able to work through it until I figure something's up. Again, I provide a safe space for her to tell me what's really happening, and she tells me she didn't just see her friend in Toronto. She went with her friend to meet up with this guy and to get closure. She explains that she and this guy had a complicated past and that him popping back up like that needed to be resolved. So she told her best friend, who advised against it at first, but decided to go with her so that nothing would happen. She explains this is why she's been so guilty and reassured me that nothing happened, but that the guilt of keeping this from me has been eating her alive. I'm hurt, but our communication has been solid to this point, and I'm just happy she found the courage to tell me. We go through it, but in the end, I feel we come out stronger. For weeks, our relationship only seems to improve, and our bond grows much stronger. At this point, there isn't a doubt in my mind that we'll have a beautiful future together. Cue more guilty behavior. Weeks of this continue, and eventually I lie. I tell her that I know the truth of what actually happened, and she has to tell me the events that really took place for us to proceed in our relationship. I was bluffing. She comes out with the truth, the full truth, and nothing but the truth. She tells me it wasn't just a conversation and her friend wasn't there. She went to his place in Toronto and stayed the night. They talked about where they left off and where she is now. One thing led to another, and they slept together. I'm mortified. And she goes on to explain that both of them felt absolutely terrible about it. She mentioned that they both agreed to never speak of it again, and both blocked each other entirely after saying goodbye for the last time. This is truly why she's felt so terribly guilty. After this conversation, I can tell she's told the full truth. The worst part is I can see just how remorseful she is, but it doesn't take away the hurt it's causing me. I kicked her out tonight. She's now at her mom's place, while I write this post in our own home. The thing is, after everything we've been through, I know she's telling the entire truth. I know she's truly remorseful, and that this was completely out of character for her. I know the only reason she lied was because she couldn't believe her own actions, and wanted to spare me from the pain. I know that she and this guy are done, and she could never see herself pursuing things further with him after everything that went down. I completely believe her story. We've talked for hours about it, and this is the woman I've known for 3+ years. Not that woman that ran around behind my back, but it still doesn't take away the pain I'm feeling. I still love her, and I do believe a future exists where we can work through this. But at the same time, I'm worried that things will never be the same again between us, no matter how much trust is regained. I worry that we'll never look at each other the same, and that the future we've always pictured together will forever be stained with this thing that lasted no more than a single day in Toronto. I feel there's so much on the line with ending things here. We have the wedding coming up, and I'll be losing her now, mine as well. Entire family whom I also love so much, in addition to the future I've always dreamed of. I haven't told anybody I know in real life yet. My mom is asleep, and I'm weighing the impact of telling those I know personally. I can only imagine she will need to fess up to her mother tonight, having been kicked out without her engagement ring. I'm laying awake here and weighing all of the options. Please help me by providing your perspective. Please let me know if you need any more information to form an opinion. I'm insanely lost right now. Update. Thank you everybody for reading this post and sharing your perspectives on the situation. I kind of figured that the majority of the replies would be telling me to run away without looking back. And while I don't necessarily believe this situation can be boiled down to it as black and white as that, I still appreciate everything that's been said. I can tell you guys care so greatly about my well-being, so thank you for that. I want you to also know that it's a position that I've thought about a lot too, and that it isn't falling on deaf ears. I should also clarify, this post wasn't my way of hearing only what I want to hear, that everything is going to be okay with a little work and communication. I appreciate those of you who have taken this perspective as well. Reading so many of the replies, there are honestly too many to read. It's really helped me gain a ton of outside perspective, while also talking with people in my life about it. The first person I talked to about this was my mom. My dad passed some years ago, and she's always been the person I tell everything to. I thought for sure that when I brought this up, she'd say, "This is it. Cancel the wedding immediately. You two are done." But instead, she listened to everything I was saying and was very understanding of everything. Not that she's okay with any of this, but she knows what kind of relationship we have. And after discussing all of the details, she came to the conclusion that this is something that can be worked through if I can ever find it in myself to forgive her, and if she's completely willing to take all of the next steps to tackling this head on. She recommended that we have an honest conversation about absolutely every part of it, that I will need to read every single text between her and him. We should go to couples counseling. We will both need to make sure this guy is entirely out of the picture, and that my fiancé will also need a psychological evaluation. Note, the psychological evaluation isn't something new either. It's something that my fiancé and I have talked about before, as it has always been apparent that she has some underlying mental health issues which make her anxious and impulsive. I called my fiancé last night, who was completely beside herself, and didn't promise anything in regards to working through this, but told her that we will need to meet at some point to cover some of the points above. She's completely agreed to all of it, and I understand that in her position, she will say anything to keep us together. But I can tell she at least wants to help me gain closure on this situation, no matter which way it goes. She's told her mother and best friends what she did, and is completely ready to own this as her cross to bear. Last night on our call, she came out with everything and said she would like me to read all of the texts, telling me the worst of them. I'm not gonna lie, guys, I haven't even been able to read them yet, but she's told me what she believes is the worst of the worst. And some of them are incredibly tough pills to swallow. At this point, the things they texted each other are actually a lot worse than the fact that they slept together. From here, I think we're going to take some more space, and I'm going to do a lot of soul searching before we meet again about this. My takeaway from our conversation last night is that she's done with this guy for good now, and that I'll see the texts that prove it on top of the fact that she now has her immediate family holding her accountable for it. I know that this doesn't completely erase the possibility of them doing this again, and I'm going to be digesting what this actually means for a while. I plan on updating this post again when there's more to share, but for now, thank you everybody for the overwhelming show of support and care. Please don't think I'm just going to cave and act like we can get through this. This is going to be the most important decision of my life to this point, and I promise I would just cut all contact right now if I truly didn't believe there was anything worth salvaging. I'll talk to you guys soon. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. This is the time in the relationship where you are supposed to be most in love, and yet she had intimate relations with another guy. No mitigating circumstances that I can see. She is not the one for you. I'm sensing you feel this whole thing has an inertia, and you can't stop the relationship. This is wrong, you absolutely can, and you should. Comment 2. I don't even think she wants this marriage. This was sabotage. She had cold feet and did something, where she knew that you wouldn't marry her. All of this was planned and done consciously. Please believe her. She doesn't want you. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking with me through this mess. Here's what went down this past week. So, after the whole confession and kicking her out, I was a wreck, but I had to keep moving, right? I started by canceling the wedding plans, the venue, the DJ, all of it. Lost a good chunk of change, but what's money compared to this betrayal? I was just starting to get my head on straight when her brother shows up at my door. He's fuming, saying I've got it all wrong, that his sister wouldn't do this. He's yelling, I'm yelling, it's a scene. Then he drops a bombshell. Turns out my fiancé's old flame has a history of this stuff. He's been manipulating women, my fiancé included, and her brother has proof. Texts, emails, the works. He's been threatening her, saying he'd wreck her life if she didn't come see him that night in Toronto. I'm floored. I mean, it doesn't excuse what she did, but It adds a layer, you know? I'm seeing red, thinking about this guy messing with her, with us. But I'm also feeling this twist in my gut because, despite everything, part of me still cares about her. Her brother leaves, and I'm left with this mess of feelings. I don't know what to do with the info he gave me. I sit on it for a day, then two. I'm not eating right, not sleeping. It's like I'm walking through a fog. Then, her best friend comes over. She's in tears, apologizing for not stopping her that day, for not being a better friend. She tells me my fiancé's been a wreck at her mom's, not eating, not sleeping, just crying all the time. And I'm thinking, what am I supposed to do with that? Forgive her? Just like that? But the friend doesn't stop there. She tells me my fiancé's been going to therapy like every day since it happened. She's been digging into why she did it, why she let that guy back into her life. And she's been writing me letters, one for each day we've been apart, but she's been too scared to send them. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know. But the friend leaves the letters, and after she's gone, curiosity gets the better of me. I read them. Every single one is like a punch to the gut. My fiancé's pouring her heart out, all her fears, her regrets. She's taking full responsibility, not blaming the guy or the manipulation. She's just raw. I spend the next few days in a daze. I'm angry, hurt, but I'm also seeing this human side of her, this broken side. And it's messing with me because that's the woman I fell in love with, not the one who cheated. I finally decide to meet her. We sit down in a park, neutral ground. She's a mess, but she's also strong in a way I haven't seen before. She's done the work, you can tell. She's not asking for forgiveness, not really. She's just asking for me to understand. We talk for hours. It's hard, probably the hardest conversation I've ever had. But by the end of it, I can see she's changed. Not enough to take her back, not yet, but enough to give me pause. I tell her we're done for now. I need space, time to figure out who I am without her. She understands. She doesn't fight it. She just nods, tears streaming down her face, and she tells me she'll wait for as long as it takes, even if it's forever. I walk away from that park feeling lighter than I have in weeks. Not because I've forgiven her, but because I've seen her for who she is, flaws and all. And I've seen myself too. I'm not ready to decide anything about us, but I'm ready to start healing. That's where I'm at now.